Hey listeners, welcome back to Infinite Podcast. Today, Simon and I are digging into something that's been bugging me, Buyer's Day. Sneaky as it sounds, it's another made-up holiday sauced up for sales. Historical gimmick? Sure feels like it. But hey, Black Friday and Cyber Monday, I get the hype, but are we just pawns in the big commercial chess game? Ethics aside, does cranking out these holidays actually do more harm than good? Simon, hit me with your take.
Oh, Buyer's Day? That's a new one. Made-up holidays are like those sequels nobody asked for, but the studios pump out anyway, because why not squeeze a bit more cash out of it, right? So what if grandma gets trampled during the midnight sale? As long as the cash registers ring, who cares? But come on, Joe. You know deep down everybody's just waiting to snatch up half-price blenders and buy stuff they don't need to fill voids they don't have. Ethics? In holiday sales? Please.
Not so fast, Simon. Let's flip the coin here. Sometimes these holidays boost small businesses that depend on seasonal spikes. It can make or break their year. And we've got to recognize how they drive consumer spending, which fuels the economy. Sure, ethics are murky, but if nobody was biting, these days wouldn't exist. Demand dictates supply, my friend. We all like a good deal. Maybe Buyer's Day is just meeting us halfway.
You know what, Joe? Saying Buyer's Day's meeting us halfway is like saying a raccoon in your trash can is just helping you declutter. Sure, it's helpful, but come morning, you've got garbage everywhere and a sudden need for tetanus shots. And small businesses riding that holiday wave? It's like watching a squirrel water ski. It's impressive, but I ain't buying tickets.
Oh man, a raccoon metaphor. Classic, Simon. But hey, the visual of a mess and regrets? That hits home. I've felt that buyer's remorse sinking in after a spending spree. It's like waking up with an emotional hangover. And about small businesses, well, they're out there hustling hard. It's tough not to cheer for the underdog trying to keep up with the big dogs during these shopping frenzies.
Cheering for the underdog? Sure, I'm all in for that. But let's not pretend like Buyer's Day isn't just slapping a discount on something and calling it gratitude. Next thing you know, we'll have Breathe Air Day, sponsored by Oxygen. And sure, small businesses need that boost, but it's a jungle out there, and not every critter is cut out for Black Friday-level stampedes. What about just supporting them without needing the pretense of a holiday? Why do we need an excuse to shop?
Breathe Air Day, sponsored by Oxygen, huh? It's ridiculous, but I've got to say, you're not wrong about these forced holidays. And supporting small businesses without the holiday facade. Now that's a concept. Do we really need a special day to show gratitude with our wallets? Seems like an everyday choice to me. Guess it takes Buyer's Day for some to remember the little guys out there.
But Joe, don't you think we've got enough reminder days as is? I mean, shouldn't supporting the little guys be a no-brainer every day, not just when there's a big red sale sign calling us in?
Absolutely. We're flooded with reminder days, Simon. Every day feels like it's dedicated to something. But here's the catch. Without the hype of these special events, many people forget or push off supporting local shops. While I'm with you on promoting year-round support, maybe Buyer's Day serves as both a nudge and a spotlight for folks to actually commit. Call it commercialized gratitude, but perhaps it's not all bad if it gets shoppers out there helping small-time operators stay afloat.
Let's get real, Joe. A spotlight? Buyer's Day is like those blinding flashlights in an interrogation room, confusing folks more than it helps. People get dazzled by discounts and forget why they're there. Buy local? Sure, but the poor little guys are playing tug-of-war with giants on steroids. We don't need a holiday for reminders. We've got social media shoving support local down our throats daily. How about we skip the fake gratitude sales and shop small because it's the right thing to do, huh?
I hear you on the blinding light, but let's not paint Buyer's Day as the villain just yet. Here's a different angle. Yes, social media spams us with shop local, but it gets lost in the noise. Buyer's Day could cut through that clutter. It's not perfect, but if done right, it can be more than just empty consumerism. It's potentially about community and sustainability, putting those small businesses on the main stage, even if just for a day. And maybe, just maybe, that one purchase turns into regular support, no holiday needed.
So you're saying Buyer's Day might actually be a Trojan horse for something good? Like it starts as this big sale day, but somehow morphs into real long-term support for mom and pop shops?
Yeah, could Buyer's Day be that turning point? Isn't it possible that among the chaos of discounts and deals, we're actually creating a habit, a reminder to keep coming back to those mom and pop shops, giving them the boost they need not just on holidays, but all year round?
You paint a pretty picture, Joe. But let's be real. Buyer's Day kickstarting this grand habit shift? It's like hoping one gym visit a year keeps you fit. Sure, it's sweet thinking a holiday drives long-term habits. I'll give you that. But if we're talking about gratitude, how about showing it without baiting folks with discounts? Gratitude's about appreciation, not transactions. Let's find ways to remind people that behind every local store is someone's dream, Buyer's Day or not.
You've hit the nail on the head, Simon. True gratitude goes beyond price slashes and one-off purchases. It's about consistently valuing those dreams and livelihoods behind the storefronts. Buyer's Day? It's a start. But let's think bigger. How can we embed that gratitude into our everyday routine, beyond just these manufactured holidays? Folks, what do you think? Keep the conversation going.
Speaking of important work and folks behind the scenes, Joe, ever think about Santa's little helpers? Those elves are like the ultimate small business team, toiling away all year without a Buyer's Day bump. But you've got to wonder, what are their labor laws like at the North Pole workshop?
Labor laws for elves, Simon. If Santa's workshop was real, I bet labor activists would have a field day. Elves cranking out toys 365 days a year. Does North Pole even have an HR department? It's all fun and folklore until you think about overtime pay and vacation days. Are elves getting their due, or is this the jolly old sweatshop of the holiday season? Makes those temporary retail workers' holiday rush seem like a cakewalk.
HR department? Doubt it, Joe. The North Pole's elves got a raw deal. No unions, endless night shifts. It's dark 6 months straight up there. And talk about job security. You think they get to slack off in January? No way. They're probably fixing the toys that broke 5 minutes after unwrapping. It's not just holiday staffing booms. Elves got the eternal seasonal gig. Meanwhile, retail workers at least score overtime during holidays and get to see daylight.
Ah, Simon, that's a grim look at Santa's helpers. It tugs at the heartstrings, thinking of those tireless elves working in the dark nonstop, with every broken toy becoming their January blues. And yeah, while holiday retail workers do get overtime, it's tough not to feel for anyone stuck in the grind, mythical or not. It puts things into perspective, appreciating the unseen efforts behind our festive seasons. Those elves deserve some love too, folks.
Whoa, elves working all year in the dark? That's a bit of a downer, eh? You're telling me these little dudes don't even get a proper break after Christmas? Man, we gotta start an elf union or something. Imagine Santa dealing with strike action. Sorry, kids, Christmas is postponed due to labor disputes. It'd sure give Elf on the Shelf a whole new meaning.
You know, Simon, that reminds me of my first job. I worked in this little toy shop downtown during the holiday season, a place where they still repaired old trains and dolls. It was magic to some kid coming in with a broken toy, thinking it was done for, only to see their eyes light up when you fixed it. But behind the counter, we were swamped. Long hours, endless repairs, even our head elf, Mr. Robertson, barely sat down. One Christmas Eve, right before closing, a lady rushed in with a tearful kid clutching a busted action figure. He'd waited all year to get his superhero's arch nemesis, just for it to snap. We were all dead on our feet, ready to lock up. But you could just feel Mr. Robertson's resolve. He stayed back, I stayed to help, and together, under that shop's twinkling lights, we got the figure battle ready again. That kid's grateful smile as he left gave every overtime hour we pulled some real worth. Made me think, sometimes it's those unseen efforts and elf-like hustles that make the holidays what they are. Even without recognition or proper breaks, making someone else's holiday memorable became our silent victory. And honestly, isn't that what it's all about?
So we toasted our mince pies to the unsung heroes in tiny toy shops. But come on, elves in eternal darkness? That just ain't right. If Elfin is anything like retail during the holidays, it's a Wonderland nightmare. And sure, that feel-good moment healing toys and souls makes for a warm, fuzzy tale, Joe, but let's not sugarcoat it with candy canes. Imagine if old St. Nick modernized operations, gave those elves some decent LED lighting, a solid benefits package, maybe even a yoga break between shifts. Hey, it's 2023. Even mythical worlds gotta evolve. Elves should unionize, demand fair hours, and hey, how about a beach vacation? They put the labor in Labor Day, but get none of the glory. Let's close shop on the Santa sweatshop narrative and give those elves what they truly deserve, a little R&R, or at least a Christmas bonus, right?
I'll tell you what, Simon. Elves getting beach vacations and fair pay? That's a holiday special I'd tune in to watch. The Real House Elves of the North Pole hits different when they're sipping cocoa by the pool with benefits. Now let's get back to our world. What about the real workers during holidays? How do we ensure they're not feeling like Santa's workshop escapees?
Let's flip the script, Joe. Imagine if holiday shoppers had to work retail during the season of giving just once, a sort of Yuletide boot camp. Bet they'd hand out raises like candy canes after that frosty dose of reality.
Yes, make it a festive rite of passage. Before you buy, you must try retail boot camp. Imagine the empathy surge once those shoppers face the holiday shopping rush from the other side. A single shift behind that register could turn the grinchiest customer into Santa's most patient helper.
But hold on, Joe. Not every shopper's going to become a retail saint after one shift. There's Grinches who believe in survival of the fittest, Christmas edition. You think a day in retail's trenches could soften them up? It'd take more than that. Employees don't need shoppers' empathy. They need solid rights, better wages, and elf-style solidarity. Let's not just wish for understanding. Let's raise those voices until corporate Santas listen up and dish out some holiday cheer where it's due.
Picture this. Elves on strike, big picket line at the North Pole. Santa's trying to sweet-talk them back to the workshop, right? Offers them cookies. Elves are like, we need health care, not gingerbread care, Claus. Santa's sleigh might be grounded till they sort out those elf benefits.
Hold up, Joe. Here's a thought. Maybe Santa's elves don't need all that. Consider this. They're magical beings. Less about rights, more about that immaterial elf essence. Elves might feed off Christmas cheer, with rest being an alien concept in their enchanted existence. No healthcare woes when you're powered by joy and candy canes. They're union-free because their needs are metaphysical, beyond our mortal employee handbooks.
Not sure I buy that, Simon. Even magical beings deserve a break. But all right, let's play with the idea. If elves are running on pure Christmas cheer, what keeps their spirits high in July? Is there an off-season joy generator we don't know about?
Well, Joe, if we're taking this joy generator idea seriously, maybe elves have an endless loop of holiday hits to keep the mood merry year-round. Or perhaps Santa's got some Northern Lights magic, keeping those spirits as bright as Rudolph's nose, even off-season. Bottom line, elves might not need the same care as us humans, because their work is their party. Their job satisfaction could be through the igloo roof, just from crafting toys. But hey, a little elfin vacation time? That could truly sprinkle extra joy on their workshop jig.
Crafting toys is a party, Simon. Come on, endless holiday hits could be a North Pole version of Groundhog Day. Imagine jingle bells on repeat until you're dreaming of silent nights. Magic or not, any job's gonna need more than tunes to keep it interesting. Maybe these elves have secret hobbies, like extreme ice sculpting or reindeer racing. As for satisfaction from toy making alone, maybe in a snow globe world. In real life, or at least realistic fiction, diversity and time off matter. Elves should punch out sometimes too.
Hey, let's face it, even if elves get jazzed up about making toys, variety's the spice of life, even for jolly old workshop dwellers. So say they ice sculpt or race reindeer on their days off. It's all about balance. And while elves might not clock out in the traditional sense, who's to say they don't deserve a little downtime? Maybe there's more to the North Pole gig than meets the eye. What else might these seasonal toy makers be up to when they're not busy in Santa's workshop?
Ice sculptures, reindeer races? That's actually a perfect segue into our next slice of conversation pie, Singles Day in China. Think about it, elves carving out time for passions. singles carving out space in the calendar for self-celebration. But while the elves might be finding joy away from work, Singles Day turned from solo empowerment into a shopping bonanza. Talk about an event built on the idea of treat yourself, taken over by market strategists.
Sure, Singles Day started out as a fun jab at coupledom, but now it's like Valentine's on steroids. All those deals aren't for empowering the lonely hearts, they're for padding corporate wallets. Makes you wonder if we're celebrating single life, or if we've just fallen for another flashy way to empty our pockets. Are folks really feeling uplifted, or is this just retail therapy gone wild? Buying a half-price blender doesn't fill the void, people. Let's not kid ourselves. Empowerment isn't found in an online shopping cart.
You're hitting the nail on the head, Simon. Singles Day might have started as this cool anti-Valentine's vibe, a day for the unattached to celebrate their independence. It's morphed into a shopping frenzy where being alone just means more cash to splurge on yourself. We're swapping genuine self-care for consumer care. The real question is, does buying stuff really make anyone feel empowered? Last I checked, a new phone doesn't hug you back. Let's call it what it is, a clever ploy to disguise spending as self-love.
Absolutely, Joe. The shift from solitude to splurge fest feels off. Like we're filling our carts to fill a gap society says singles have. It's as if they're saying, no plus one, here's a plush one. But true empowerment, that comes from choosing how you live your solo life, not from flash sales and express shipping. Let's celebrate authenticity in being alone, taking trips, learning skills, enjoying silence, not just the noise of the checkout beep. After all, last I checked, self-worth wasn't on sale.
Whoa, hold up. Are you saying Singles Day is actually a thing? And here I was thinking Black Friday had the monopoly on consumer craziness. So singles get a day to treat themselves by going all out with shopping. Talk about finding the loophole in retail holidays. That's wild. You'd think empowerment would be more about personal growth, not growing your gadget collection. Can't say I saw that coming. But hey, if my blender breaks on November 10th, I know when to shop for a new one.
Yeah, Joe, Singles Day is real, and it's basically Black Friday's long-lost twin, on a sugar rush. It might have kicked off for some good old single self-love, but now, it's less about celebrating independence and more about which app can score you the shiniest toy at midnight. And while snagging deal after deal feels like a win, it sidesteps what being single is really about: personal growth and living life on your own terms. I mean, throw me a good book or a cooking class over another smartphone any day. Are we forgetting how to be solo without the consolation prizes?
Guess being single nowadays means having the freedom to buy a second robot vacuum for those tough-to-reach spots under your singleton sofa. Who needs a partner when you've got two Roombas cleaning up? It's like having a plus one that cleans after itself. Talk about low maintenance. Singles Day, when your wallet's heavier than your date calendar, and honestly, isn't that just fine?
Hey, speaking of robot vacuums, Joe, ever wonder what happens if a Roomba meets a mess it can't handle? Like, do you think it just goes in circles or sends out an SOS to the nearest human? Like, help, I've encountered chaos and I can't clean up?
I get the joke, but stick with me on the Singles Day train for a second. The thing is, it actually spotlights something bigger, how we're redefining being single. It's not just about the discounts on home gadgets. It's about how society's turning solitude into this extravaganza of spending. Originally about celebrating independence, it's now overshadowed by this intense push to consume. And let's be real, those retail giants aren't exactly pushing self-reflection and meaningful experiences. Where are the promotions on those, huh?
Okay, let's flip this. Singles Day isn't just about mindless buying. It's a day that actually celebrates freedom of choice. So yeah, society's painting solitude with a big commercial brush, but maybe that's because there's power in choosing what you want, to shop or not. This day could represent a shift towards acknowledging singlehood as normal, not a phase to rush out of. Companies targeting singles might seem cynical, but they're also recognizing a growing demographic that's shaping markets. By catering to them, they're validating a lifestyle choice, which is a win if you look at it from a certain angle.
All right, Simon. I hear your point about freedom of choice, But let's not ignore the undercurrent here. Singles Day feeds into the narrative that being alone requires compensation through stuff. It's built on analysis showing single people as prime targets for products to fill the gap. What gap? Many singles cherish their freedom and aren't seeking a partner or a new smartphone to complete them. Furthermore, the celebration's evolution into a shopping spree potentially deflects from the importance of personal fulfillment outside material possessions. It masks the empowerment aspect with consumerism. A win for the market, maybe, but is it truly a win for individuals seeking substance over stuff?
I'm sticking to my guns here, Joe. The gap marketers see isn't always a void needing to be filled with stuff. Singles are being seen as people who can decide for themselves. And hey, that's progress. We've moved from pitying the single folks to celebrating them, even if right now it's through buying things. But this recognition, it shifts perceptions and opens up conversations about what solitude really means in today's world. Sure, swinging the pendulum toward personal growth over purchases would be the real victory lap we need on Singles Day.
Well, Simon, I'll concede that Singles Day is changing the narrative around solitude, one sale at a time. While I'm skeptical about how much genuine empowerment lies at the end of a shopping spree, perhaps this trend is just a stepping stone to broader acceptance and celebration of singlehood in its many forms. What we need to watch is whether society will continue to equate being alone with buying more or eventually emphasize enriching experiences instead. Could we see a future where Singles Day is about personal achievements rather than product acquisitions? That's something to chew on.
Hey, the whole Singles Day gig really makes you think about other holidays too, like Valentine's Day, right? On that day, everyone's big on saying I love you with chocolates and flowers. But back in the day, wasn't an I love you just, well, words and feelings? Now, you've got folks competing over who can buy the biggest teddy bear. It's like there's a formula. Spend more, love more. Talk about pressure, huh? Can you really put a price tag on romance, or does that drown out what love's meant to be?
Spot on. Valentine's Day has become a paint by numbers for affection. Red roses, check. Gourmet dinner, check. Dazzling jewelry, double check. This buy to signify model waters down love to just transactions. You're buying into the idea that spending equals caring, but hearts aren't won in checkout lines. Genuine connections are built on shared moments and real emotions, stuff money can't buy. Are we forgetting how to express affection without opening our wallets? Love shouldn't be measured by receipts. It starts to lose its true color then.
Valentine's Day, the annual love lottery where your odds of winning are directly proportional to the size of the box of chocolates you buy. And don't get me started on those giant cards that are bigger than my love life. If my feelings have to fit in that thing, guess I need to up my romance game. Or rent a truck to deliver it. How crazy is it that we're essentially scoring points for creativity in the shopping aisle rather than the actual relationship?
It's like Valentine's Day is the Olympics of affection, and gold medals go to those who shell out most. Here's the fun part. Research suggests that these grand gestures might actually lead to shorter relationships. The focus on materialism can overshadow deeper compatibility and communication. Ultimately, what we're buying isn't love. It's an image, an Instagrammable moment. The true essence of romance gets lost in this commercial noise. What about those little things that keep relationships thriving? The daily thank yous, listening, laughing at bad jokes, love as a performance sport. I'm not buying that ticket.
Really, shorter relationships, huh? So you're saying going big on V-Day could actually backfire? Does that mean all those over-the-top displays might just be flashy distractions from building something real and lasting? Where's the space for those quiet acts of love then, if we're always waiting for the grand finale?
Absolutely, Simon. The problem is that these grand gestures set up unrealistic expectations. Both partners might start equating love with how much you can dazzle each other. Plus, it puts immense pressure on what should be simple acts of affection. Real intimacy comes from knowing your partner, understanding their needs, and being present in the everyday grind, not just pulling off a once-a-year fireworks show. When the petals fall off those big, overpriced bouquets, what's left? Hopefully more than just an impressive bank statement. Love's about consistency, not climax moments.
Valentine's Day, where love is measured in chocolate ounces and the depth of your devotion by how badly you're allergic to her favorite flowers. Babe, I got you these roses because my love is as intense as my sneezes. We're talking true love here, the kind that needs antihistamines.
Haha, that's one way to measure commitment. But let's flip the script. All these Valentine's Day shenanigans aren't just clogging up sinuses, but also muddying the waters of what real love looks like. It's less about proving love through grandeur and more about knowing someone, like remembering they're allergic to roses in the first place. When did we get this idea that affection has a price tag? Real love should come without side effects, except maybe uncontrollable smiling, not sneezing your way through a date night. That's the genuine article, not this spendfest that feels as artificial as those drugstore chocolates taste.
Sure, we're pushing the know your partner narrative hard here. Yet even without all the flair and sparkle of big-ticket Valentine's stuff, isn't some level of showing love with gifts part of human nature? Cavemen probably weren't carving "I heart you" in rocks, but were picking the best fur pelts or the shiniest rocks. Maybe these days, it's less about gifting something just to impress, but finding joy in giving. Makes you wonder if there's a way to strike that elusive balance between genuine love gestures and our knack for splurging.
Huh, when you put it like that, Simon, we might be hardwired to show off a bit when it comes to love. I mean, sure, the cavemen probably weren't rolling out a red carpet of leaves or anything, but gifting has always been a way to express care and status. And true, it is satisfying to give someone something special. Can we find that sweet spot where our gifts are thoughtful without being extravagant? Maybe it's about aligning those presents with what really resonates with our partners. If it's less about the cost and more about the connection, then maybe love isn't totally for sale after all.
You got it, Joe. It's all about that genuine connection over the price tag. Could be we're looking for that balance where gifts are tokens, not trophies, a sign of knowing someone rather than just an expensive bookmark in a relationship. Maybe the best gift is understanding what makes your partner's heart tick. Now, does our love-o-meter need recalibration, or are we really nailing this love thing after all?
Riding on the idea of gifts, let's shift gears for a second to old Saint Nick, Santa Claus. Talk about the ultimate gift giver, right? But imagine the behind the scenes at the North Pole. If elves are churning out toys for millions of kids, that's one heck of an operation. It makes Amazon look like a lemonade stand. Never mind who's naughty or nice, let's talk economics. What do you reckon Santa's overheads look like? Is he undercutting toy stores every Christmas with his free labor and magical raw materials?
Come on, Joe. Imagine the logistics. This isn't some back alley operation. Elves need dough for those candy cane lattes. Plus, free labor? Pfft. They must have one wicked union. And raw materials. He's got to be magic mining or something, because last time I checked, toy-grade plastic and electronics don't grow on Christmas trees. Seriously, though, Santa's giving every megacorp a run for their money with his overnight delivery. The toy store is basically left holding the eggnog while Santa's slaying the e-commerce game.
So, if Santa's sleigh is the original Prime delivery service, I'm thinking his reindeer must be moonlighting as supply chain managers. I mean, if Rudolph's nose has to double as a GPS for foggy nights, who's dealing with inventory? And let's not forget the sleigh parking costs. No wonder he lands on roofs. Plus, if elves are rocking those union benefits, dental health, gingerbread bonuses, the North Pole's balance sheet must be redder than Rudolph's nose pre-flight.
Absolutely, Joe. You can't ignore the overheads. Those elves need a seriously robust healthcare plan. Working with tiny toy parts is an eye strain epidemic waiting to happen. And all those raw materials? Ain't no way they're getting them without some North Pole magic that likely doesn't come cheap. Santa's workshop must be part manufacturing marvel, part magic show. Plus, think about R&D. Kids these days want high-tech toys. That means Santa's got to have a Silicon Valley wing up there too. No way this operation isn't costing him a pretty penny, or should we say, a jolly nickel.
I'll never forget this one Christmas. My niece was obsessed with getting this super specific tech toy. You know, the kind that has more buttons than a NASA control panel? So I go hunting for it, and what do I see? The price tag looked like someone smashed the keyboard. The cost of innovation, I guess. But here's the kicker. Turns out my sister, her mom, found a local artisan who made a handmade version. No flashing lights or gadgets, just craftsmanship. It should have been a hard sell, right? But Christmas morning comes, and you wouldn't believe it. She loved it. Played with it nonstop, even preferred it over the plastic gizmo machines from her friends. Made me realize there's a different economy of affection in play. Sometimes less tech, more heart wins the day. Makes me wonder. If kids knew the story behind their gifts, maybe they'd value the low-tech love a bit more, North Pole magic aside.
That's some food for thought, Joe. Sure, the North Pole's toy factory might pump out all these fancy gadgets, but it seems what really hits home is the story, the craftsmanship, like your niece's handmade gift. Maybe the true magic of Santa's workshop isn't in the high-tech toys or the vast quantity. It's in the idea that each toy has a little sprinkle of elfin heart and soul, that personal touch. Because when it comes down to it, toys are just things, but it's the love behind them, the care in their creation that makes them truly special. Pair of elf shoes or not.
Yeah, that's the real deal right there. It's easy to get caught up in all the latest gadgets and tech. There's nothing wrong with them. But when a simple thing made by hand outshines the flashiest toy on the shelf, that says something powerful. It's about human connection, man. A toy carved out by someone's hands carries the weight of their time, their attention. It's like this stamp of humanity on it. That matters because it touches on something real, something we're kind of losing these days, a sense of craftsmanship and authenticity. It's underrated, really.
Joe, you're spot on. But picture this. If the North Pole were a true biz, Santa's handcrafted approach would be like luxury brands, limited editions so every toy's unique. Unlike mass production where robots and assembly lines churn out thousands of identical items an hour, one elf, one toy. It's bespoke, high quality. Plus, with today's automation and scaling tech, the cost of manufacturing can drop significantly. Now apply Santanomics, no distribution cost. Hello, flying reindeer. Nearly zero marketing, word of mouth since forever. Raw materials magically sourced. Thanks, Christmas spirit. This is cottage industry meets tech giant. It takes small batch to astronomical levels. And the kicker? All that authenticity and craftsmanship just might be better for our soul diet than another hunk of plastic. Makes you think, doesn't it?
Wait, hold up. That's actually brilliant. Santa as a luxury brand with the ultimate small batch production. Handmade toys from the North Pole could basically be the Rolls-Royce of the toy world. I hadn't thought about it like that. It's a whole different economy. No marketing budget because Santa's got global brand recognition on lockdown. And magical raw materials? Man, just imagine the profit margins if every industry could pull resources out of thin air. Quite literally in Santa's case. The game changes when you throw in the magic of made by elves. That's something artisanal money can't buy. Not in the regular market anyhow. Forget your conveyor belts. We've got elvish craftsmanship, creating gifts with stories, memories, soul food for the holiday diet. Now this Santanomics model, tell me it wouldn't give those real-world tech giants a run for their money. It's revolutionizing factory work as we know it, or rather as we don't, since it's all northern lights and riddles up there in the workshop. What an operation!
Honestly, if we ran a few numbers and crunched the data, we might just have venture capitalists rushing to invest in North Pole Inc. Imagine that pitch deck. It'd be like Shark Tank met the Nutcracker.
Right, the perfect holiday episode of Shark Tank. But here's the truth bomb. Santa's shipping single-handedly outclasses every drone startup. Elves as craftsmen? Their attention to detail eclipses factory lines. Quality control has got to be through the roof, or igloo. Yet the kicker is, this isn't about turning a profit. It's a non-profit wonderland committed to pure joy. No investor would get a dime back. It's wild. Here you have an enterprise that theoretically could put every toy manufacturer out of business overnight, but chooses to stay off Wall Street's naughty list. Magic aside, the sheer efficiency and commitment to craft over cash in Santanomics could revolutionize modern production ethics. Less waste, more wonder. It's sustainable economics with a cherry on top. Now that's a business model for the future.
Yep, even without the bottom line buzz, Santa's not-for-profit hustle leaves us corporate elves scratching our heads. It's this beautiful mix of efficiency, joy, and that sprinkle of mystery. Hard to compete with, harder still to replicate. Now, what if we borrowed just a pinch of that North Pole spirit for everyday business? Could it be the secret ingredient missing in our quest for sustainable economics? Makes you wonder.
Speaking of the North Pole spirit, it's not just about presents under the tree. Imagine a world where all holiday gifts were on the house, a global Santa situation. Freebies for everyone. Now that would be an economic curveball. How'd this dreamland impact our happiness over gross national product? Could flipping the script to focus on gross national happiness actually play out well for us?
If you swap price tags for smiles and measure success by cheer, economies would look inside out. With gifts flying free, the pressure on our wallets during the holidays lifts off like Santa's sleigh. But there's a twist. Manufacturers might not be happy campers if all toys were freebies. Their profit appearance would vanish quicker than snow in July. Yet, think about it. Without the holiday shopping frenzy, we could truly focus on what brings us joy, not just stuff. Instead of cash, maybe good deeds become the new currency. Kindness is king, and happiness, well, that's the jackpot.
Kindness as currency sounds utopian, but let's ground it. Economies are built on transactions. Swap cash for good deeds, and you're shaking the foundations. If all gifts were free, sure, personal savings would shoot up during the holidays. But think about industries that rely on this season's spend fest. It could be a disaster. Here's another angle. Manufacturers might innovate to stay invaluable. Focus shifts from high-volume sales to year-round brand loyalty programs. Earn your holiday cheer credits through engagement, eco-friendly actions, community service. It's a world where goodwill turns into tangible rewards. That's pushing GNP towards happiness, measuring markets by morale over money. Now that's something I'd like to see evolve in our lifetime.
Consider this. Approximately 30% of retail sales occur between Black Friday and Christmas, with consumers in the United States alone spending over $700 billion during the holidays. It's a hefty slice of the economic pie. Now imagine if that arena of commerce just vanished. With gifts gracing us for free, those billions would be redirected, maybe towards experiences or charity. And then there's the environmental angle. If we went all in on Santanomics, maybe those mountains of discarded holiday packaging become quaint relics of yesteryear. The reduction in waste could lead to an uptick in environmental health indices, a metric in our hypothetical gross national happiness scale. The quirky thing is, taking cash out of the equation might not destroy consumerism, but transform it. Instead of buying and wrapping stacks of stuff, we'd likely pivot to services, gift a cooking class, a day at the spa, spontaneously join a friend for skydiving lessons. Imagine Black Friday ads promoting acts of kindness instead of doorbusters. That sort of shift reallocates economic energy from factory floors to personal growth and community building, which could be the ultimate win for both happiness and the economy.
Could we end up with holiday stock exchanges? Trade your good deeds like stocks. Doing a favor could be akin to buying low and spreading cheer, selling high. Quite the merry market twist.
Ha! Let me tell you about my neighbor Paul. Guys like Mr. Rogers and Santa rolled into one, always doing good around the block. Last summer, he threw a barbecue for the whole street. No reason at all, just because. Does it every year. So come fall, his tree drops a branch, smashes my fence. Before I can even look up a repair guy, half the neighborhood's in my yard like an army of friendly ants, fixing it better than new. No money exchanged, just goodwill and burgers from months ago. It's like Paul's backyard barbecues are our suburban stock exchange of favors, a hotbed of traded good deeds that pay off when you least expect it. Now, that's a merry market at work.
Paul's story is heartwarming, but here's the rub. Expanding that backyard economics to a larger scale is tricky. Say we ditch cash for kindness on a national or global level, tracking and quantifying those good deeds gets complicated. And while Paul's barbecue creates a bond in your neighborhood, do those feelings translate into measurable value outside of your local fence-fixing effect? Plus, let's be real. Favors aren't always equal. Imagine comparing "I babysat your kid" to "I fixed your car." It's subjective. How would you standardize this? Could lead to shoddy deals and good deed inflation. Also, take away the holiday shopping craze, and sure, the environmental footprint shrinks, but jobs are at risk too. There's a flip side to every coin, or burger in this case. Creates a whole new playing field that requires careful thought if we're measuring merry markets and not sinking our own economic ship.
Oh, absolutely. We can't just sprinkle fairy dust over the economy and expect pixie-perfect balance. In a world bartering services for smiles, you'd need some serious guidelines so that people trading piano lessons or pet sitting aren't left feeling like they got handed coal. And about jobs, Joe, holiday shopping isn't just a spree, it's livelihoods for millions. Cut out retail's biggest season and you might save trees, but you could also axe entire industries. It's a tricky sleigh ride when you talk upending tradition for trees and cheer. Maybe this gift-giving GNP is more than measuring mirth. Could we keep the jobs, the jingles, and still join in on the joy? Trick is striking that merry medium between giving freely and keeping the lights on, not just on the tree, but everywhere else too.
Sure, tradition's great, but what if we get innovative? A hybrid system. Create a marketplace where certain items remain traditionally sold while others fall under good deed currency. Adds layers to the economic cake without tossing out the whole recipe.
Joe, that's a brain tickler. So mixing markets. Cash for couches, kudos for kettles. But how do we draw the line? Which goods get tagged for trade and which stick to dollars and cents?
Well, non-essentials could be prime candidates for the kudos market. Artisan crafts, quirky gadgets, or niche services, areas where personal touch counts more than mass production, might thrive on good deeds. Essentials like food, housing, healthcare, keep them cash-based to maintain stability and ensure access. This way, industries focused on wants rather than needs can explore this goodwill system while we protect jobs linked to our basic needs. It's all about balancing innovation with security.
Intriguing blend, like sweet and salty. With art, trinkets, and nice-to-haves in the kudos market, we're dangling a carrot for creativity and community focus. Essentials stick to the script to keep society's wheels greased. It's like financial feng shui, Joe, balancing the material with the meaningful. But what do listeners think? Could this be the missing piece in our economic puzzle or just a holiday pipe dream?
You know, there's a fine line between inspiration and infringement. Speaking of which, have you ever considered the legal labyrinth of holiday lore? Take Rudolph, for example. What if that red nose was patented? Imagine Santa navigating intellectual property rights.
Whoa, Joe, Rudolph with a patent? That's a Christmas curveball if I ever heard one. Negotiations at the North Pole might be less about who's naughty or nice and more about licensing fees and royalty checks. Could you picture Santa in a courtroom defending his right to use that shiny snout to guide his sleigh? The headlines would be wilder than a reindeer rodeo.
Ha, that's hysterical. It'd be a total trip, right? Santa in court, elves on the witness stand, all for Rudolph's nose light-up feature. And you'd have the paparazzi swarming the North Pole like it's celebrity trial of the century. Could you imagine the cross-examination? Mr. Claus, isn't it true you've been exploiting this nose technology without proper compensation? The whole courtroom drama would be better than any holiday special on TV.
Imagine Santa's sleigh getting booted for unpaid nose royalties. He'd have to navigate foggy nights the old-fashioned way, squinting. Ho, ho, hope we're going the right way, team? But seriously, he'd owe so much in back pay to Rudolph, the red-nosed guy could retire to a sunny beach. Rudolph sipping a carrot smoothie on a lounge chair, watching dollars roll in every Christmas Eve. That's what I call reindeer retirement goals.
Retiring to the beach is one thing, but let's not forget the other characters clawing for a piece of the pie. What if the Grinch claimed his heart growing 3 sizes was because of Rudolph's radiant red? Or Frosty demanding a cooling-off period because the nose is melting his snow? It'd spark an IP snowball fight. And don't get me started on holiday songs and stories copyright. Should Jingle Bells really be locked down for a century? This IP stuff could deflate the holiday spirit quicker than a punctured inflatable lawn Santa.
Hold the sleigh, Joe. Are you telling me there's a world where Frosty is filing lawsuits over a red nose because he's turning into a puddle? And now we've got the Grinch in the mix too, with his heart condition. Talk about needing holiday health reform. Next thing you'll tell me is Tiny Tim's crutch is patented and Scrooge owns the rights to saying bah humbug. Where does it end? With everyone paying a fee to sing Silent Night? This sounds like a jolly mess, buddy.
Absolutely, it's ludicrous. This could unravel the fabric of holiday joy, everything tangled in legal battles. Silent Night royalties? Soon we'd pay a dime every time someone hums it while shopping for gifts. And your Scrooge scenario hits home. Classics like A Christmas Carol would be less about teaching warmth and redemption, more about guarding trademarked catchphrases. It transforms sharing culture into fiercely competitive commerce. We got to keep the spirit of these stories alive, free from the chains of IP claims or risk losing what makes them special in the first place.
All this talk of copyrights and patents, chillier than Jack Frost's handshake. Next thing you know, we'll have Santa slapping a trademark on ho ho ho. Imagine kids needing parental permission slips to sit on his lap at the mall because they're entering a trademarked zone. It'd turn holiday cheer into lawyer up, legal fee fear. And poor Rudolph probably needs a lawyer just for his nose job.
You've got a point about the trademarked zone, but let's push that thought even further. Imagine the chaos at the North Pole Legal Department. Elves working overtime, not on toys, but cease and desist letters to anyone even whispering ho 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 without a license. And those mall Santa Clauses? They'd need to attend a Santa school accredited by Claus Corp. Just to wear the red suit and belt out the trademarked chuckle. But think about this. If every jingle bell had a price tag and every snowflake was under patent review, wouldn't the very essence of the season be lost? It's like saying love or laughter should be chargeable. We're talking about traditions passed through generations, universal symbols of shared humanity, not commodities on the stock exchange. Sure, creators deserve credit, but when greed overtakes gratitude, we might as well replace reindeer with lawyers pulling the sleigh.
Ha! Lawyers pulling the sleigh. That's a sketch waiting to happen. You're spot on. Let's not trade our mistletoe for money grabs. After all, can you really put a price on Grandpa snoring through the carol singing?
You know, Simon, this takes me back to holiday gatherings at my grandparents' place. My grandpa, he had this old accordion, we're talking vintage. Every year without fail, he'd play carols and the whole family joined in, off-key and all. One year, we jokingly told him he should patent his unique renditions, Grandpa Joe's holiday harmonies or something. He laughed, eyes twinkling, saying, "What? And rob you all of cold, hard cash for butchering O Holy Night." It was a light moment, but it echoed truth. Some things, like family traditions or red noses on reindeer, are meant to be freely enjoyed. That story pops into my head every time I hear about these crazy copyright ideas. Grandpa's message was clear. Not everything valuable has a price tag.
Yeah, Joe, there's something really grounding about Grandpa's take. It digs at the heart of what IP laws should protect, the original creator, without stifling culture and tradition. A red nose on a reindeer is iconic. It's shared magic. Should creators get credit? Absolutely. But if we start putting paywalls around every snowman and sleigh bell, we sap out the soul of the season, the collectiveness that lets us all buy in without spending a dime. That's the real treasure of holiday traditions.
Absolutely, Simon. It's all about celebrating creativity without putting a padlock on our shared cultural moments. Rudolph's red nose should remind us of the bright path of sharing, not lead us down a dark trail of exclusivity. But here's a thought. If we did live in a world where holiday icons are tied up in legal rights, how would that change the stories we tell? There's plenty to unpack there.
Man, I guess if we could start charging royalties for holiday traditions, those New Year's resolutions would look pretty different. Speaking of resolutions, Joe, they're like personal economy boosters, aren't they? People decide to hit the gym or get more organized, and boom, all of a sudden, there's a surge at sportswear stores and productivity app subscriptions skyrocket. It's like our personal goals light up the cash registers. Could be the crystal ball of market trends.
Resolutions as economic crystal balls, huh? But come on, Simon, think about it. How many people do you know who actually stick to their New Year's resolutions? Gyms are ghost towns by February. And sure, there's a spending spike, but predicting long-term market trends? That's a stretch. You'd have better luck forecasting the weather with a magic 8-ball. People's intentions don't always equal action. January's aspirations often turn into December's reminiscing without any real change in between. It's a surge, not a stable indicator.
That's just it, Joe. The initial spark of motivation can lead to a quick splurge. Folks buy up high-tech blenders for that healthy lifestyle, or those top-notch running shoes for a marathon they'll never run. But as you said, by February, it's like a New Year's resolution graveyard. So yeah, maybe tentatively, resolutions hint where the money flows in January, but it's a shaky bet for the rest of the year. Industries cash in on that first rush, but they can't bank on it sustaining. It's less about lasting impact and more about momentary market shakes.
Hey there, new listeners. You've jumped into a fun debate we're having about New Year's resolutions and whether they can predict spending trends. Simply put, does that January 1st gym membership craze mean anything for the economy? We're poking holes in the idea that these annual promises actually shape the market long term. Sure, there's an initial buying burst. We're all grabbing kale smoothies and yoga mats. But let's be real, it fizzles out faster than our motivation to wake up for that 5 a.m. run. So tune in as we break down if these well-intentioned pledges are more blip than predictor in the grand economic game.
Oh wow, newly tuned in friends, you've walked straight into a resolution revolution. So folks are thinking their January gym hype and the planner frenzy tell us something about the year's spending habits. Now, that's a take. Maybe there's a bump when everyone is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about being better humans, but predict the whole year's spending? I'm skeptical. People love fresh starts, but sticking it out? Not so much. We're creatures of habit, after all. It might nudge certain industries temporarily, but long-term economic forecasting, from my flimsy promise to avoid donuts? Good luck with that.
Hold up, Simon. Think about it. A booming fitness industry at the start of the year does show intent has power. Remember, according to market research, gyms see memberships soar by as much as 12% each January. It's not just a passing trend. Fitness apps, home workout gear, even healthier food options see sustained growth year on year. That resolution revolution can spark real economic momentum. The wellness industry alone is worth billions and growing. Saying their boom is all the fuel of broken promises? Not quite right. There's some follow-through there, and it's reshaping markets.
Okay, I hear you on the gym stats post-New Year's. And sure, some industries might get a nice little bump from all that resolution fervor. But let's not inflate the balloon too much here. We're talking billions in the wellness industry, yet how long does that actually last beyond January's guilt binge? Also, think diversity in resolutions. Not everyone's pledging to be the next fitness guru. Some folks want to learn the ukulele or read a book a month. That's not moving the economic needle in the same way. So is the intent behind resolutions a spending crystal ball? I'm thinking it's more like a magic 8-ball. Responses are hazy. Try again later.
You're onto something when you say not all resolutions are about fitness or big-ticket spending, Simon. But let's flip the lens. Look at courses and educational platforms. There's got to be something said for the uptick in people investing in online learning and skill development post-New Year's, right? Now, those are less tangible, harder to quantify marks on economic trends, but they highlight a critical industry bolstered by resolution season. The self-improvement market has seen massive growth, with forecasts expecting it to reach nearly $14 billion by 2025. That's more than just a temporary jump. It's an evolving sector fueled partly by our yearly commitments. Resolutions might not predict everything, but they sure map out some strong currents, especially in specific industries like education and e-learning.
Man, Joe, you're talking numbers that hit right in the feels. There's something kind of beautiful about a surge of people chasing dreams and self-improvement, isn't there? It's not just empty wallets, it's fuller lives. That growth in online learning and courses, it's people betting on themselves, year after year. Yeah, my sarcastic side wants to say we're all talk and no walk, but deep down, that's heartwarming. It shows our resolutions have some weight. They're reshaping how we spend and learn in a pretty hefty way.
Welcome, new listeners. You're joining me, Joe, and my good pal Simon as we toss around the idea of New Year's resolutions and how they tie into our spending habits. It's a mixed bag. Yes, January sees this big sprint to gyms and stores, with everyone fired up to tackle their goals. Some folks think those pledges could be a sneak peek at economic trends, while others, like me, are a bit more cynical. But then there's that beautiful flip side. People investing in personal growth, like learning online, which speaks to something bigger. Turns out, these yearly promises might not show us everything, but they definitely crank the gears in certain industries. Stick around as we keep unraveling the real impact of our New Year ambitions on the old bank account.
You know, Joe, as we skate around this rink of resolutions and spending, it keeps circling back to us humans being predictably unpredictable. We say one thing, do another, then loop back around. It's like a dance between intent and action. That initial spending surge in certain sectors, it definitely says something about what we value, if even for a second. What I'm itching to know now is how that translates beyond the impulse buys. Does it actually shape habits or markets long term? Or are we all just making grand gestures at the stroke of midnight? Let's keep digging into this.
Absolutely, Simon. It's that age-old gap between wishful thinking and reality. But you know what? That gap gets really interesting when you hop over to virtual worlds. Talk about a place where intent and action collide dramatically. In fantasy gaming ecosystems, players grind for gemstones, gold, whatever the currency may be. It's like New Year's resolutions on steroids. And those currencies can have real-world value equivalency, right? Take World of Warcraft's gold. It's more than just in-game money. It shapes an entire market within Azeroth while holding real cash value outside of it. These economies, they mimic our own, but with twists that reveal plenty about supply-demand dynamics, not just in stories and player interactions, but in reflecting our own economic behaviors. Heck, some folks make a living off this stuff. Digital actions, real-world impact. Now isn't that something?
Now hold on a sec. You're telling me people are out there making legit cash from virtual gold in games like World of Warcraft? No kidding. We're not just swinging digital pickaxes for pixels. We're talking about folks actually paying their rent with this stuff? That's wild. It's like we've crafted whole economies and job markets in these fantasy worlds. Seriously, game currencies might start in fiction, but they end up having real clout? That's next level, a gamer Wall Street of sorts. These virtual economies are like shadow twins of our own, huh? Mind-blowing.
For sure, Simon. The line between game economies and real cash is blurrier than my vision before that first cup of coffee. But let's not get carried away. Making a living off gaming currency isn't your average 9 to 5. Sure, there are those few grinding their way to a paycheck in virtual gold mines, but they're the exception, not the rule. Think about the implications. If everyone could pay rent with virtual loot, we'd all quit our day jobs. In reality, the value of these game currencies is volatile, and cashing out often goes against game rules or comes with serious risks. And look at the ethics. There are stories of unfair labor and exploitation in gold farms in some countries. So while yes, it reflects some real-world economics, let's not glamorize it. These fantasy worlds can get real dark, real fast when actual money's on the line.
Right, the glitter of those game world currencies can sometimes be fool's gold. Remember hearing about that guy who spent a fortune on a virtual spaceship thinking he'd make a killing, but ended up space-wrecked with nada? Talk about a cosmic-level reality check. It gets you pondering about the wild frontier where virtual economies and real-world cash collide. It's like the Wild West in there with all the high stakes and digital desperados.
Virtual spaceships costing real-life fortunes? That's a head spinner, Simon. It's kind of amazing, isn't it? We've gone from spare change in piggy banks to throwing down stacks of cash on digital vessels rocketing through cyberspace. The commitment some players have, it's downright astounding. And when these virtual assets crash and burn, the fallout is just as tangible as that spaceship was imagined to be. It highlights a wild aspect of human psychology, too. How we value the intangible, pouring time and money into these pixels as if they were bricks of gold. The lines are definitely blurring between what's game and what's gain.
Well, Joe, diving deeper, it's not only about the direct real-world value of these in-game currencies, but also the bustling economies they create. Like, you've got supply and demand running the show. Exclusive items become crazy valuable. Players set up shop as if they're bona fide entrepreneurs. Heck, some games even have stock markets. It's the sheer complexity that gets me. All those trading systems copying real-life economics. Developers have to constantly tweak things to avoid inflation or crashes. And don't forget all the drama with real money transactions. Devs ban them, yet a black market thrives. We're talking virtual economic theory applied on the fly here, man. The game becomes the reality for some folks. Their digital wallet is as serious as their leather one.
Oh, I'm with you on the complexity. It's like peeking under the hood of these games reveals an economist's playground. But here's where I'll jab back. These virtual economies, as intricate as they are, sometimes miss the chaos of real-world markets. You've got devs acting like gods, tweaking and tuning to keep their worlds balanced. And let's not gloss over those black markets. While sure, they're a sign of player ingenuity, they also often lead to account bans and legal issues. This isn't just economics, it's a controlled economy with a reset button, a sandbox for theory testing. Real consequences? Sure, but there's always that safety net. While these game markets mimic our own, there's an artificial ceiling to that sky. They're fascinating, yes, but the game part is inescapable. We're invested until the power cuts out.
Hold on, pal. Think about the anomalies that shake up these auction houses, like when a rare in-game item gets listed at an absurd price, and boom, it alters the market. Now, doesn't that parallel real-life economic mayhem? Take tulip mania or the dot-com bubble. They prove how speculation can create chaos. Sure, developers might have their hands on the controls, but they can't fully predict human behavior. Players find loopholes, manipulate markets, even cause inflation, which can mirror our economic crises. So yeah, game economies have boundaries, but within those walls, players wield real influence, often mirroring real-world market madness. That's as wild and unpredictable as any stock exchange floor, virtual or not.
You've got a point there. The unpredictability of player behavior definitely brings real-world economic adrenaline rushes to these virtual markets. And you're right, despite developer controls, the in-game economy can still spiral out into madness driven by player speculation and hype. It raises the question, what does this say about us as players and people? When we're willing to risk so much for virtual gains, it suggests a deeper relationship between our digital and physical lives. Virtual or not, the value we place on these items speaks volumes. So folks, what's the craziest thing you've seen or done in a gaming economy? How deep does this virtual market rabbit hole go?
Oh, I've got a wild tale from Azeroth's auction house that'll have you crawling back to your piggy banks. This one time, a player mistakenly listed a super rare item for, get this, 1 measly gold. The scramble that followed? Absolute chaos. Picture Black Friday, but with orcs and elves elbowing each other in the virtual aisles. It's like someone shouted fire sale on Wall Street. Total market bedlam.
That's one for the books, Simon. But catch this, did that one gold blunder cause any long-term shakeup in the market, or was it just a flash-in-the-pan frenzy?
Oh, what? No way. Someone actually blew it that bad with a killer deal? That's like hitting the jackpot and then dropping your winning ticket down the drain. But hey, you know these virtual trading floors are like mini Wall Streets. A simple mistake can turn the whole market into a circus. I haven't witnessed such an epic auction blooper myself, but just thinking about it has me itching to dive back into the game and keep my eyes peeled for a steal.
It's a total lottery, Simon, but that doesn't mean everybody wins. For every player that snags a deal of a lifetime, there's the seller, forehead slapping into next week. But let's not ignore the sharks, players who sit back and exploit these blips for massive profits. They're the day traders of the gaming world, sniffing out bargains and flipping them for sky-high prices. And you bet this chaos can ripple out, stirring up the in-game economy just like a stock market frenzy. Notorious market crashes aren't myths. They've tanked virtual economies when exploits or bugs get abused. Some say it's all fun and games until someone's digital wallet gets hit. Looks like Azeroth might need its own version of the SEC.
Oh man, you're preaching to the choir here. The thought of that kind of profit pilfering really twists my guts. These auction house sharks, they just wait for someone's bad day and pounce. It's savage. It's tough enough to make a decent in-game living without these vultures circling. Makes you feel for the little guy, right? Just playing the game, trying to score some cool gear, and then wham! Economy tanks thanks to some bug abusers. Honestly, stories like those get under my skin because there's real time and effort at stake. We laugh about Azeroth needing an SEC, but imagine if your virtual gold stash took a nosedive because of someone's greed. Oof, that stings on both sides of the screen.
Oh, absolutely, Simon. It's a punch in the gut. Puts me right in the shoes of those honest players just trying to have a good time. Everyone's out there working their tails off for some virtual prestige, and then it all bottoms out because someone decided to be sneaky with an exploit. It hits hard, because behind every character is a person who's invested not just their leisure hours, but passion into this world. And sure, it's just a game to some folks, but let's not forget the friendships and communities that are built within these realms. When those get rocked by market mayhem, it's more than numbers. It's shared dreams taking a hit. It's stories like these that really show how connected we are to digital worlds and how much they reflect our realities, wins and losses included. What do you guys think? Ever had your in-game economics crash down around you? Share those tales. We're all in this together, after all.
Yeah, Joe, you've nailed it. It's heartbreaking when that virtual economy takes a nosedive because of someone's greed or a glitch in the matrix. Makes me think of market integrity, both in games and real life, and how trust is at the core of it all. When someone rips that trust apart for their own gain, it's not just pixels that get damaged, it's people's faith in the fair play of that fantasy world. The deal is, each time something like this goes down, the community feels it. It's those folks who spent weeks, even months, building up their stash who suffer because somebody else decided to game the system. It shakes up the whole ecosystem. It's more than a game for many players. It's a slice of their life. And if the trust goes, what's left? Just some hollow husks walking around, asking why they spent so much time in this world in the first place.
Completely, Simon. It's like if suddenly gravity stopped working on Earth. It's not just an oops moment, it buckles the whole foundation of how we've learned to walk.
Man, no gravity? Imagine walking your dog and it just floats off into space. Whoops, there goes Sparky, orbiting the neighborhood again. Guess we're using jetpacks to fetch the paper now.
Ha! A floating Sparky would be quite the sight, man. Crazy as it sounds, that's not too far off from what happens in these game markets when normal rules just stop applying. Like items suddenly priced wrong cause of a bug. It's mayhem. And then you got players taking advantage and manipulating prices. Next thing you know, the whole economy's flipped on its head. It rocks the community boat big time. Makes me wonder, should there be an intergalactic park ranger to keep space dogs leashed? Or do we let the virtual chips fall where they may and just grapple with the aftermath? Madness, I tell you. Sheer madness. What's our take here, listeners? Ever had your loot vanish into the black hole of an economic crash? Share those stories, unless they've floated off too.
That's a legit space dog scramble, Joe. So I gotta wonder, do you think developers should step in and fix market messes when they happen, or is it on players to ride out the economic storms they've helped create?
Developers have to step in, Simon. I mean, we're talking about maintaining the trust and integrity of their games. When a big economic storm hits because of an exploit or a bug that no one saw coming, it's on the devs. They've got to fix the leak or the whole ship sinks, taking everyone's hard work with it. Imagine a supermarket letting people run wild after a pricing error. It's not up for debate. They sort it out. Game developers are stewards of these digital worlds, so they've got a responsibility to keep things fair and fun. No one wants to stick around when the game feels broken. What's fair is fair, right?
Right. I see your point on devs keeping the peace. But let's play devil's advocate. What if we just let the virtual market ride out its own storms? Think about it. Some of the best tales come from total meltdowns. Plus, surviving an economic apocalypse could be a badge of honor for players. Who wants a nanny state game where every little risk is bubble wrapped? Hands off, I say. Let the chips fall, and may the craftiest survive. It's all part of the wild frontier that keeps us coming back for more, isn't it?
But hold on, Simon. Leaving players to weather out the storm sounds romantic, like a fight for survival. But we've got to think about balance. Ever watch some rich tycoon in Monopoly flip the board because they can't stand losing? Chaos isn't always fun. Remember that game-breaking loot bug from a few years back? Players who exploited it got filthy in-game rich, while ordinary Joes just trying to have a fair shot were left in the dust. The devs had to roll back servers or ban hordes of players. Was it fair then? Sure, scars make stories and toughing it out could feel epic. But at what cost? Simply put, without intervention, it's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the slickest, which doesn't equate to fairness or skill. And we're talking games here. They're meant to be an even playing field, at least at the starting line.
You're right, Joe. Fairness should be the foundation, even when in-game shenanigans hit the fan. Fixing exploits and keeping things on the level is crucial. Otherwise, we might as well say bye-bye to the rulebook. But hey, maybe there's a middle ground, an MMORPG Wild West with enough checks to stop one outlaw from taking over the whole town? Makes me wonder, what kind of stories do other players have from the digital market frontier? Situations where balance saved the day, or made it way more interesting.
You know, speaking of economies flipping on their heads, Simon, it reminds me of the Dragon's Gold fiasco I heard about. Some player mistakenly listed a super rare item, the Dragon's Gold, for like 1 in-game copper instead of the bazillion gold it was worth. The buyer must have thought they hit the jackpot. Absolute loot disaster for the seller, but man, what a triumph for that lucky scavenger. It's these kinds of stories that crack me up. Ever seen an item so ridiculously priced that you had to do a double take? Or snatched up something so undervalued that you felt like you robbed the merchant blind? Digitally speaking, of course.
Hey, my bad. I didn't quite catch that last part, Joe. But let me just jump in and say this. Thanks to all you awesome listeners for tuning in. You better come back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern for more wild tales from the digital frontier. We've got plenty more where that came from. Stay quirky, folks, and keep those stories coming. Catch you on the next wave of infinite podcast madness.